Hello, my name is Kaz Kasozi. At the time of making this, most of the education system is down, and I'm making these little videos to assist my students to keep on track. I'm going to call this little series of videos, I'm going to call it In the Box. And they're going to be about mixing, about tracking, and all sorts of things to do with recording music or music production. These lessons are not going to assume too much prior knowledge of the subject matter. So if you find that you're already conversant with one particular section, feel free to skip ahead. And today we're looking at reverb. Let's first look at the very basics. In Logic Pro 10, I've got a piece of music here, like a demo. Let me first play it and then I'll talk a little bit more about it after. Okay, this is a small demo for something. It's just a chorus of a song. I just recorded a few tracks here where we got 7 tracks. One is a simple drum beat. Then we got some cymbals, and then we got a darabuka, a live bass, a synth pad, a live akogo, and then lastly a voice. None of them have been processed. So let's have a look at the mix here. There is one here. You'll have to ignore this track here because I'm using it for controlling what I'm recording, the actual class. So we're going to look at this track here, and we're going to apply reverb as an insert, just like we would put any other effect. So here in the audio effects area, I'm going to look for a bit of reverb. I'm going to put a simple one, like a silver verb, and there we go. We've got a simple plugin. So as simple as that, already I've applied reverb. It was a dry signal, but if I play it now, you hear it is different. And if I over accentuate the reverb, yeah, you get the idea. So already I've applied some reverb, but this is just like a default patch that comes as we put it in. But let's first understand what is going on here. This area here, which says output, is kind of distributing the original dry signal, which was running before we put anything, is the one that you see here with a percentage of 70. So I thought of it has been cut off, and we're hearing the dry signal still, but not fully. And then the other 30% is being filled up by the effect of the reverb that is being applied, and then the sum of it coming down to the fader. So if I were to rebalance these and I increase the reverb like so, the new sum would actually change the gain structure. I would have now a louder signal. I'll probably have to go back down to the fader and pull it back down, because now I've got more than the sum of what I had before. And similarly, if, for example, I'd done the opposite, so I could hear the reverb more, if I'd gone down like so, then I would have ended up having a lesser value than 100%, meaning that I would then need to raise the fader in order to make up the gain back to where it was. So these allow us to balance between the dry signal and the wet signal being the effect and the dry being the original signal. So I'm going to first put it back where it was when we came in, or roughly where it was, something like that. This section here, I'm going to totally ignore. This is a modulation effect. It's an effect within an effect. So we want to deal with reverb. I don't want to talk about modulation at the moment. We're just dealing with the basics of reverb. So I'm going to disable that. Then we'll look at these parameters, which actually are the ones we are concerned with. We'll start with this side, which is a pre-delay. It refers to the time between the original signal and the first reflection from the surface. So if a sound is made, and then the gap between that sound until you're able to hear the reflection from the wall or any other surface in the space. And it's this that gives you the idea of where the sound is coming from within the room and also how big that space is. I'll play the voice and then muck around with the pre-delay so you can hear what it does. So you can hear there is a tiny gap between the original signal and the first reflections, kind of like widens the space. Let's go again and you have a listen. And you can hear, of course, that when the pre-delay is raised, you get a sense of the space being bigger. Basically, the reflective surfaces are farther away from you. It really is a very important effect in kind of defining the character of the reverb. And then we've got here reflectivity. Compounded within this reflectivity is also showing how much the reverb decays, how long it stays around lingering. In a way, this control is affecting two different aspects: the early reflections and also the later reflections as the sound decays, to kind of like decide how long is it staying around in the room. Reflectivity is dealing with the complexity of the different reflections within the room. So that means after the sound has been made, there will be some early reflections, but there are also some later reflections as the reverb dies away, as the sound decays. So this kind of like increases the complexity of all those reflections as you go higher. Lower is a little bit simpler. So let's play it and have a listen to that. So you can hear that it got more and more complex. So naturally, the farther you go that way, the bigger the space, the more reflections you have in the space, and also in a way even surfaces that are reflective. So this is kind of like dealing with several things within one control. But one thing to bear in mind, if you look at what both of these are doing, is that they actually complement each other. None of them can work in isolation. So each affects what the other will sound like. Then we have here size, which I believe is quite self-explanatory. So that way, when you go bigger, the room obviously is bigger, or the space is bigger, and this way is smaller. So let's have a listen. You get the idea. And then this one here, density, deals with kind of the diffusion. And diffusion in sound is to do with when we get sound reflecting off a surface, say like bathroom tiles, it comes back with almost as much intensity as the original. However, if it hits a surface that is a little bit perhaps corrugated, that first of all is not as reflective, but when it even reflects, it's looking in all sorts of different directions, like a corrugated surface or loads of different pieces of furniture in a room, not only can they absorb, but those which can actually reflect, they reflect the sound back, but in many different directions, meaning that it scatters, and it's that scattering that is called diffusion. And when you push the density further up, you're increasing kind of like the diffusion element. And then this way, there's less of it, meaning maybe the surface is a little bit more direct. So it has less, or the surfaces are not as many, or the ones that are in that space are not actually diffusing surfaces. They don't scatter the sound. So I'll play and we have a listen to that. So the thing to understand about diffusion is that the more the sound is diffused, the smoother it is. It doesn't mean necessarily that there won't be reverberation, but it won't be a reverberation that is compounding different sounds and maybe articulating one particular frequency to make it stronger. It kind of makes the sound more even. It's a useful control to understand also. And then, just like I said earlier, all these work in conjunction with each other. So don't think of just one just because, reverb, okay, a big room, and then you just consider working with the reverb like that. When I first got a hand at a reverb unit, not necessarily plugins, because when I first started production, we were using physical machines. There were two knobs. One was size and one was decay. Whereby the decay was dealing with that sustaining or the reverb tail. And I just kept pushing them anyhow, but paying attention with your ear, but not knowing really what was going on. And I think now when you have these various controls, you need to kind of pay attention to all of them because they affect each other. They don't work in isolation. So I'm going to build a bit of a reverb around that voice in isolation, and then I'll put it back inside the mix and then start to also juggle it there as well. Okay, so what I've done is to try and create like a fairly, not a big room, so the reflection is coming back quick enough, and then not a very long decay of the reverb. I might revisit this and then make sure the room is fairly small to fit the kind of things I'm trying to do here. And then I've made the diffusion a little bit more complicated, like maybe the room has more surfaces bouncing the sounds all over. And this I might also revisit as we play within the song. So you see, even with simple plugins like this, you can get like a decent reverb. I'm going to work on it a little bit more and make it a little bit ridiculous, just so that you see what we can do with it in different ways. So in case I liked that, then I can actually go over here and save it and save my own preset, and I can call it whatever, and save that reverb. And if I go back, if I need, I can be able to call it up. This lower area here is, if you see that they've got like 410 hertz, and here they've got like 6,000 hertz. is obviously referring to frequencies. So these two are actually filters, and this side allows you to cut out the low frequencies. So you see low cut, so it's a high pass filter, and then this one allows you to cut out the high frequencies, and therefore it's a low pass filter. It allows you another way to further shape the reverb, since sometimes boomy sounds can kind of mask the original dry signal. So if you have too much of low end within the wet signal, it can end up killing the intelligibility of the original signal. And if you have too much of the highs, they can cause a lot of sibilance, the S's and the T's, and sometimes TH, depending on the person singing. And even for instruments like now, the darbuka or even the akogo, it can now start to sound too spindly, like that tiny, those high frequencies can be a little bit sharp and start to interfere with the original quality of the instrument's character. So I'll show how this can affect something by applying this same reverb to the akogo. So I'm just gonna drag it. By the way, you may have noticed that there's something here which just seems to have appeared in the video. What actually happened is that the audio of this particular video got corrupted, and I've had to re-record this segment after I'd recorded something further. So please try to ignore this. I'm just gonna remove it, but you'll understand it in the next video. I'm going to play the akogo, I'll solo it, and then we can hear what the effect of these filters can do. I'm going to exaggerate the reverb so that it can really be heard. So you can see it gets warmer when I pull away a bit, and then also this gets boomy when I let it. So it's good to shave some of the low off and also to shave the highs off in a lot of reverbs. The kind of design of reverb I've done here is not too bad, but because of the way I've applied it through an insert, sometimes you can't control as well. It's hard to juggle these and get the right thing that you want between the dry and the wet sound. By the way, when you get used to playing around with these, even if you come to a different plugin with different controls, but they'll be kind of trying to reflect the same kinds of elements, that they may call them something different. So you can actually construct the same space somewhere else. So that's it for applying reverb as an insert. I hope you found that useful. See you in the next video.